What's going on, everyone? Jeranism, back with another video for you today, discussing NASA and their proofs and their evidence to what they tell us all is the truth. Now, the reason this is important is because, well, NASA single-handedly gets to decide where it is that we live. Now, if where we live is told to us based on fact and evidence, then so be it. If we live in a vast universe full of many suns like our own, and planet Earth is nothing but one of trillions of other planets, then so be it. However, if it is true that we are unique and that there is not billions of other planets, then I find it imperative and absolutely essential that we know this information. So, if anybody is to be challenged at a high level, it needs to be NASA. They need to be held to the highest standard of proof and evidence, and in no way should NASA be given a free ride or a free pass. They haven't deserved it, they haven't earned it, and therefore they should be held to the highest of standards. And so this video is just looking at some of that. Take a look at the screen now and you can see this rotating globe courtesy of ESA. And you can just look at that and tell me if you think you live there. Again, if you do, that's up to you. I don't think I live on that spinning ball. That's my opinion, and we're starting to learn the opinion of many others as well. So that's when we need to require proof. Why is it that NASA in 2015, an era of HD, video, high definition photos, why are we still given the same image from 1972 as proof of the Earth in space? We see videos of vast galaxies and satellites landing on comets, but we're not shown video proof of the Earth spinning out in space. We have a rover on Mars taking selfies, taking videos of sunsets. Why are we not shown a video of a lunar eclipse from the moon? Now, a saying that was made famous by Carl Sagan was extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And believe it or not, being on a rotating ball in the vastness of space, rotating 1,000 miles per hour and flying around the sun at 66,000 miles per hour and flying around the galaxy at 500,000 miles per hour while flying around the universe at 1.3 million miles per hour is an extraordinary claim. And so NASA should know that the requirement by those of us who must take their word for it would be that they show us the extraordinary evidence. And they have not done that. In fact, everything they do is show us just enough evidence to keep us quiet. But is it enough to show proof? Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about the mathematical proof that the Earth is a globe, the mathematical proof of gravity, and they are happy calling this proof. Now, even Einstein knew, if we look back at his geometry and experience speech, when he said his opinion regarding mathematics was, as far as the laws of mathematics refer to reality, they are not certain, and as far as they are certain, they do not refer to reality. He continued, "It seems to me that complete clearness as to this state of things first became common property through the new departure in mathematics, which is known by the name of mathematical logic or axiomatics. The progress achieved by axiomatics consists in its having neatly separated the logical formal from its objective or intuitive content. According to axiomatics, the logical formal alone forms the subject matter of mathematics, which is not concerned with intuitive or other content associated with logical formal." Now, if you don't know what an axiom is a rule or principle that people accept as true. So what's basically going on here is if you accept that we live on a sphere, then there is mathematical proof that will prove that as being true. However, you must first accept the axiom that we live on a ball. If you're asking for proof of that ball without assuming that we're on a sphere, well, guess what? Math can't tell you that. We need to see it in reality first, and this is where NASA and the scientific community has dropped the ball. And this is where we reach the problem of, is NASA trustable? The scientific community thinks so, even despite their occult beliefs and practices, both in the past and today. But let's take a listen to a recent NASA Senate hearing, and you tell me if you think they're trustable.
What is our next destination for America in space?
The next destination for America in space, and I'm not being trite when I answer this, is the International Space Station. We've got to get there 4 more times this year. The long-term destination, after we successfully close out the space shuttle program, the ultimate destination is Mars. And there are intermediate points that we're going to have to get to before we are capable of going to Mars. If you gave me all the money in the federal budget today, I could not get a human to Mars. I could not morally put a human in a spacecraft and launch them on an 8-month mission to Mars, because I do not understand the radiation
environment.
All right,
so what is our next destination in space?
The next ultimate destination is Mars.
No, the next one.
Congressman, the next destination, as I said before, is the International Space Station. And
All
we've
right,
got
let's
to do that
not
4
be
more times.
trite then. What is the one after that?
It's Mars.
So there's nothing in between as far as you're concerned.
But there are intermediate stops
What
on
are
the way
they?
there.
What's the next one?
The moon is a destination. Lagrange points are destinations.
Which one is next?
You mean where do we go immediately next? Is that the question?
That's what next
Incrementally?
means.
Congressman, we are in the process of developing a program. I will have to be able to give you the details, and I will come back and make it for the record in the coming months.
So why are we even talking about how to get to the next destination? We don't even know what that is.
Congressman, we do know what it is. We know what it is.
What is it?
Congressman, we can go back and forth forever.
We seem to have to here. I'm looking for an answer.
Okay. The next destination in the Constellation program was the moon.
What
After
about
that, there
now,
was,
since you're planning to
Congressman,
eliminate
the
that?
program of record and the program to which we are working right now, because you have told me that I have to continue to work the Constellation program. We're talking about the 2011 budget, but if you ask me right now, the next destination is the moon.
Okay, good. Now, the Augustine report came up with 4 options and several sub-options or alternatives within the options. Which one did the administration adopt?
The administration adopted the recommendations of the Augustine report, which was
Which
the flexible
option?
path. The flexible path.
The flexible path.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you
That
think
was the recommendation of the Augustine committee.
All right, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I did read the report and it seemed to me that the flexible path involved continuing the Constellation program. Is that a fair statement?
The Constellation, the Augustine committee did not recommend cancellation of the Constellation program. That's
So then I'm right.
You're right that they did not recommend cancellation of the Constellation program?
The flexible path included continuation of the Constellation program.
The flexible path did not necessarily include. I think you're cherry picking from the report. The report said.
I just want to know why you had all these people come together, the people who knew the most about the space program, and then you ignored their recommendation to continue the Constellation program.
Congressman,
That's what I'm asking.
they did not recommend continuation of the Constellation program. What
The
they
flexible
said,
path did.
Congressman, what the report said was that they find no technical challenges in the Constellation program that cannot be met the way that NASA has always met them. However, to do so will cost a significant amount more than anyone will reasonably be able to place in a budget.
All right, regarding the budget, it seems to be your plan to put people in space through commercial programs. Is that correct?
I intend to put people into low Earth orbit through commercial programs.
How often has that happened so far?
We do it today.
Explain to me. Go ahead.
Well, today I go out and I pay USA to operate the space shuttle out of the Kennedy Space Center. The vast majority of my workforce right now is, as Congresswoman Edwards mentioned, 89% of the workforce in the shuttle program today are contractors.
So you consider the space shuttle program to be a commercial program?
I consider the space shuttle program to be evidence that commercial entities can successfully operate.
Please answer the question. My time is limited.
Yes.
Okay. So what's wrong with continuing it then?
We would not, I do not think it would be wise to continue the space shuttle program beyond the 4 additional flights that we're on track to fly right now. I think that would not be prudent.
But if one's commercial and the other's commercial, what's the advantage of switching?
The advantage is that we relieve ourselves of the responsibility and the cost for operating and maintaining infrastructure as we do today with the space shuttle program.
Isn't it true that commercial entities have never put a man in orbit? Ever?
Commercial entities have put every human in orbit that the United States has flown. And you can take that up with North American Rockwell or Boeing or the United Space Alliance.
Honestly, I'll tell you, my time is up now, so I'm going to tell you this briefly. I think that what you're doing is taking a shot in the dark. You have no way of knowing if any commercial entity will ever be able to put a man in orbit, no matter how much money you throw at them. What you're doing is you're taking NASA's manned space program and making it a faith-based initiative. I yield the rest of my time.
Now, I don't know about you, but for me, it is obvious that NASA is not one of the world's most upfront and transparent organizations in the world. And that should go without even saying. But let's take a look at something I saw on the internet the other day. It was simply a little web page that said, "Can the curvature of the Earth only be seen from outer space?" And as the article starts, it says, if you didn't know that the Earth is a sphere, there are 3 common observances you could use to convince yourself that it is. First, it says the first common observance is the shape of the moon. First, the face of the full moon is circular. Okay, I would agree with that. And that would lead you to believe that it is a sphere. Again, did you catch that? The observation is that the moon is circular, and that would lead you to believe that it is a sphere, rather than a disk. But let's continue. When the moon eclipses the sun, the shape of the shadow is always circular. This is true, which clinches a spherical shape for the moon. So, if you got that, they somehow have now clinched, based on the circular moon, that it is a sphere. It says, by extrapolation, you could now assume that the Earth is a sphere also. So that's their evidence. Then it says, also notice that when the moon is being eclipsed by the Earth during a lunar eclipse, the part of the moon that is eclipsed is actually the shadow of the Earth. This shadow tells you the Earth is a sphere, just like the moon. We're going to talk about that a little bit, and the lack of evidence for any kind of eclipse. And it says a third way to see that the Earth is a sphere is to look at how objects in the distance disappear as you get further away. For example, a 100-foot tall ship that is 15 miles away is not visible. That's because it is blocked by the curvature of the Earth. As it approaches, it rises from the tip of the mast. First is visible, then more and more of the ship comes into view as the ship gets closer. So that is their 3 evidences of a spherical Earth. And we'll cover some of those and why in no way should you be able to take from this article that the Earth is a sphere. So here you have a picture of the moon. And you can see, if you look at it closely, that it has no hot spot, as would be required, and I'll show you here in a second. If you're learning to draw, or if you looked up how to draw a sphere, and look at the shadowing that would be required of it, that the moon does not show that at all. Notice here, I have 2 different balls, and I'm both showing you what the shadowing should look like. If you look at the left side, the letter A showing you that the top and bottom, letter C, of that ball on the left are darker because they would be harder to see. You would see the center easier than you would see the top and the bottom, therefore they'd be darker. You'll also see that the letter B is showing you in what direction the light is coming from. Now if we look at the ball on the right side, same thing. A and C are darker and shadowed. B tells you exactly where the source of the light is with the hot spot. And then D showing you the darker middle. Here's another picture of the moon where we see there is no such shadows on our moon. It is completely lit in total in completeness. There is no darker top, there is no darker bottom, there is no hotspot showing where the source of the light is. So to me it does not even show at all that it is a sphere. A sphere would show significant changes in the top and bottom. And if you think about it, if we are underneath the moon, being it is above our heads, we should be able to see more of the bottom of the moon than we would see of the top. Yet when you look at the moon, look at it tonight, it's pretty close to being full. You'll see that you don't see any more of the bottom than you do the top. In fact, it looks like a disk, that you're seeing the whole thing in completeness, but not at all like a sphere. If you look at this movie clip, it's a little bit different than you would expect to see the moon because of the different lights in the room. However, you can see, since we are underneath that ball, we can see the underside of it. Another thing is, if you look at this picture here, which shows a transit of Mercury or Venus, how could you say that that item that is passing the sun is a sphere? It looks like a circle. Now, in regards to some of the eclipse proofs, this particular picture you can find if you just look up blood moon eclipse. You'll find this right in your first couple results. The photographer here, his name is Karim Saad, and I'm putting his contact information in the description, because if you're like me, you'll want to send him an email and just mention to him that clearly this is a fake image. If we look at why, you'll see in my first two images that he's shown here, look at what you would call the butt of the moon, the little explosion point, and you'll notice that that has moved. You'll also notice here that in between the fourth and fifth image, look at the difference in the noticeable areas of the moon. So you can see I drew some lines to show you where they're at on the left, and then look at the right. They're significantly higher. This is a screenshot of an eclipse that you can find on YouTube, and you can see clearly that this is their little lead-to image. And if you look at where the butt of the moon is here, and then look at when the video starts, look where the butt is now. So these are the kind of things I'm noticing when I'm looking at eclipses. I'm seeing the moon being turned in different directions, and I'm seeing video footage that is turned off right before the end of the eclipse or right before the beginning of it. So if anybody has any complete footage of an eclipse, I'd love to see that, because as of right now, I don't think any of it is sufficient proof at all. Here you see a diagram of them showing how the lunar eclipse takes place, which is a short eclipse, usually 90 minutes in total from the time that the Earth's shadow appears on the moon until it disappears. But if you look at that, how could it only take 90 minutes for that to happen? All you have to do is take a look at that diagram and understand that if the moon takes a month to go all the way around the Earth, how is it that the period of time it moves through the Earth's shadow takes 90 minutes? It does not make any sense. Here you see another image of an eclipse. Somebody needs to explain this to me. Is not the shadow coming from the top? How could that be possible? Then is the sun underneath us? That makes no sense. None at all. So hopefully somebody has an explanation for that, because I'm just starting to see a bunch of fraud. Here we have a picture of the leader of JAXA, which is the Japanese space program, and the head of NASA. The reason I bring up JAXA is because a lot of people call them a secondary source. They like to tell me that NASA isn't solely responsible for our view of the Earth, that other space agencies are. But here's JAXA showing us, for the first time ever, an eclipse from the moon. Now, again, I'm not that smart, I'm not a scientist, but I'm not that stupid, that this Earth took up the entirety of the sun, just like the moon takes up the entirety of the sun from our vantage point during an eclipse. How would the Earth not cover it completely? We're not the same size as the moon. We're 4 times bigger. Wouldn't the shadow over the sun be 4 times bigger? How would it be identical? It wouldn't. So these are them just passing off little nonsense, calling it truth, calling it fact, calling it proof, and it's not. This is the Japanese orbiter that is orbiting the moon. This is a video they've shown that is their proof of the Earth. And you'll see, as you look at that the clouds are not moving, that the Earth is not spinning. And if you just look at the ground here in a second, there's another video also by them as well, and by the same orbiter. Here it is. Now what just happened with the ground there? Pretty disgusting, if you ask me, that these people are considered scientific, that this is in any way considered any kind of proof, or that we should accept what they hand us as being evidence of anything. This to me is evidence of nothing other than fakery, CGI graphics, and nonsense. For starters, look at the size of the Earth from the moon and realize that we're smart enough to know what the moon looks like from Earth. So can't we, using our own brains and our own reasoning, decide what size the Earth would look from the moon's vantage point? Yet this supposed real-life image clearly shows nothing like we would expect. Think of the detail that we can see on the moon from Earth. Zoom in with a nice camera and you can see high levels of detail. Do we ever get to see that kind of detail from the moon looking at Earth? Of course not. We see these faraway views, the tiny little Earth, the no morphing clouds, and the size is just way off. These are the kind of things that we should question, and just in what I've showed you already is enough questioning to deem what NASA says is complete insufficient proof of their extraordinary claims. This is another image or video from JAXA showing the final moments of their orbiter's path until it crashed into the moon. And you'll see here now all of a sudden we can only see a strip. There's nothing to the left or right. What was wrong with the images we just saw? Why do we have to see something different here? Does not make any sense, and anybody who just sees this and believes it has obviously chosen to give up their own intellect and the use of their own brain and decision-making skills. For instance, this is NASA's proof that we landed on the moon when they sent their orbiter to show us the landing spots of Apollo. And you'll see what they're doing here is just changing the pixels just enough that they can call this proof. It's